Okay, so we've got one more game left to preview, but before we do, I want to make sure if you are watching this, you are subscribed to A Peek Inside SEC Football. We go live every Monday at 10 a.m. We preview the biggest games for the upcoming week. We recap the biggest games from the previous week. We take a lot of shots at our own teams because that's fun and they're not that good right now. So make sure you are subscribed, and then you can see down at the bottom all of our individual X handles. If you want to argue with us on social media, we are totally down. You can see it right there at the bottom of your screen. Okay, the last one we're going to go over: Texas A&M and Mississippi State. This is, I think, an interesting matchup. We talked a lot about Mississippi State earlier in this episode. They almost got it done against Tennessee. They are playing much better than we expected them to be able to. They're holding their own. They're sitting there at 4-1 with that one loss in overtime. What does a win against Texas A&M do for this Mississippi State program?
It shows that the first 4 weeks were on a fluke, because I had them winning 3 games this season over the summer. They've already beaten me on that. And so then you open up with your first conference game, you lose a heartbreaker at home. Then if you go on the road and the line's 11.5, let's say they lose this game by 14, all of a sudden those thoughts start to creep in, maybe not in the locker room, but amongst the fans and the media, like, I think this might still be Mississippi State. But if you're able to go out there and win, you really show like this, we've turned this around already. We're a legitimate threat in this conference. And I will say for this game, I am kind of sold on A&M being a contender in the SEC this year, but that has more to do so with the parity in the league rather than me thinking that the Aggies are some elite squad. Um, and State can really sling the ball around. And A&M's defense, with the game against Auburn aside, they're vulnerable to that. They look pretty vulnerable to downfield passing. So Mississippi State definitely has a good shot in this game. I think they match up pretty well in certain spots on both sides. And winning this game, it prevents anybody from saying this is still the Mississippi State that we're used to seeing.
TJ, this is another game that'll be head-to-head with your Florida State-Miami game. The line on this is 13.5, and the over-under is 58.5 points. So they're obviously expecting some heavy scoring. If Texas A&M were to win, what went right for them?
I mean, they're more talented, so they didn't make the mistakes that Tennessee made. Joey had a couple of turnovers. They were not as sharp as I think they should have been, but you're playing at home and you're the more talented team. You're also playing a team in Mississippi State that came off of a really emotional loss where it felt like they had a real chance to go out and win the game and they just couldn't get it done. But a team that is more talented than any of us thought. I do think, A&M just needs to take care of the ball. They need to be a little better offensively than they were against Auburn. 16 points isn't enough against an Auburn defense that really, I'm not overly impressed with, and an Auburn team that just isn't that good. But I do think that, just what went right for A&M, they just took care of the ball and they made the plays that they needed to, and they played at home and they didn't do too much. And that should be enough in this game, not to discredit Mississippi State completely. But you're playing a team, again, that came off of a very emotional loss. You just need to go out and play your game and you should be fine in this one. There's a reason they're a 13.5 point favorite. And there's a reason they're number 5 or 6 in the country. They're a good team. I don't think they're super elite. I don't think they're a national title contender or anything like that. But I do like the matchup here for A&M.
So A&M beat Auburn 16-10. TJ alluded to that last week. Where do you compare Auburn's defense and Mississippi State's defense? Obviously, we saw a lot of points given up to Tennessee, but they were also able to score a lot of points against Tennessee. And if you're A&M, you are kind of concerned about only having been able to score 16 against Auburn.
I don't think they're overly dissimilar. Auburn definitely has the more blue chip players, but I don't love Auburn's secondary as a whole. So I wouldn't say that the DBs are that big of a matchup. I do think Auburn has a better front seven, but Auburn seemed to have given State the blueprint for how you can stop this A&M offense, which like Notre Dame couldn't figure out. Nobody else could really figure out, but A&M now has tape of when they struggle. And Marcel Reed, I think he's been playing good. He hasn't been very accurate. His completion rate is not great. Like against Notre Dame, I think he was right around 50%. I forget what he was against Auburn, but like for State defensively, if they can make Reed uncomfortable, he will throw the ball away, whether that's just out of bounds, to the ground, or to one of your corners. So I do think they have a decent shot defensively because we don't love Auburn's defense, even though it is a little more talented. Like, it wasn't like some top 5 unit that went in there and held A&M down. It was an average defense. So it does seem like anybody can really do that if they're able to get to Reed.
All right, well, where you think this one ends up?
I think it's a pretty similar story as the game that State just played against Tennessee, where they're able to hang around a little bit. But now that on being on the road, especially, I just don't know if they're where they're at, where they need to be at as a program to win a game like this. I'm like 31-21 A&M.
All right, TJ, what about you?
Yeah, I'll say it's slightly closer, but 34-20. Well, maybe that's the same score. 34-24. I'll go a point closer.
All right, I went 28-17 A&M. Although and I'm trying to sit here as a Florida fan and say, like, do I want A&M to win this so that when Florida comes to town the next week, they're pretty confident, or do I want them to in this slugfest that they eventually lose and there's some emotion in this? I'm gonna side with I want them to win. I don't know. I feel like that might be the safer bet for Gator fans. Not that any is particularly safe, but I love the Mississippi State story, though, and I will be very excited with my cowbell, on the way home from the Florida games, toggling between this and Florida State Miami, because I do think this would be such a cool story, and I am all for the upsets happening.